4 members of the governing board present. We have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. And our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I asked David Waldron if he'd lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much and welcome to our meeting. Any items from call to the public? No items from the call to the public, so we will go to action items. Number 4, consideration of the consent agenda. All items that on the consent agenda will be approved as one motion unless one is removed from a member of the board. What is the pleasure of the members of the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. We have any further discussion? With no further discussion, then we will proceed to vote. Those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, approving the consent agenda as presented, please manifest by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by saying nay? Motion carries unanimously. Let's see. Nomination and election of Arizona Association of Community Colleges trustees and representatives. I've asked David Waldron if he would be willing to serve and represent the board and the college on that important committee. He has agreed yes. We normally do this as an election on January, in our January meeting, and I think it appropriate that we as a board approve him with a motion at this time. Could I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second from Gladys Christensen. Thank you very much. Discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay?
Nay. Not just
Overruled. Thank you. The motion was unanimous in the affirmative, and thank you very much for being willing to represent us there. Thank you.
Do you have a report for us?
Yes. Done.
Okay.
We will pass on then the report from that particular committee and go straight to Dr. Elliott's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Governing Board, President Gibson, faculty, and staff. I have a few things that I would like to update the board on relative to the college. The first is that the college has been recently awarded a $1.2 million grant from the Department of Labor to expand, I don't know if I need the microphone, expand and apprenticeship opportunities for students and increase the number of industry partners for apprenticeships. Additionally, the college has partnered with Wilson Electric to offer an electrician training program at SMC. This is a one-semester program. It launched launched Monday. Students will be able to complete within a semester with a commercial electrician installer certificate, allowing them to enter right into an apprenticeship and then into a journeyman position. And that class is filled with 15 students. The new welding classes and program at Aravipa launched this semester. We're happy to report we have 25 students enrolled in that program, and that will bring some vibrancy to the Aravipa campus. This morning, I had the privilege of attending the open house and ribbon cutting for CAC Connect, which is a partnership with Maricopa High School, where the college will actually have a physical presence at the high school for our recruiters to meet with students that are interested in attending Central Arizona College. And finally, I would like to offer a huge congratulations to our Board of Governors member, Gladys Christensen, for being selected as the Pacific Region Trustee Leadership Award recipient. Gladys will be recognized at the annual ACCT conference in San Francisco this October. And as a regional winner, she is the sole nominee from the Pacific region, and this makes her eligible to win the prestigious National Trustee Leadership Award. And on that, I will end my report.
Thank you very much. That is definitely on a high. Mrs. Christensen, would you like to make a speech?
No, thank you.
Oh.
I've already told my joke.
Well, I guess I got told. All right. Thank you very much for that report. We're going to item 9, Business Affairs Report. Mr. Wadka.
Thank you and good afternoon, governing board members, Mr. Chair, governing board members, Madam President, Secretary, and all colleagues and any guests present this afternoon. 2 items for your information. The first one is the finance report. This is for the period ended June 30th of 2019. This is very preliminary. It is a very rough report at this point since the fiscal year has not been closed yet. We typically close towards the end of August, beginning of September, and then the auditors come on campus. So these are truly unaudited numbers. But at this point, the preliminary budget for June 2019 shows our general fund expenditures at approximately 85% of the total budget, which is about 4%, a little over 4% less than the previous year. But once again, these are still unaudited. There are a number of year-end accrual entries that will still occur. So typically we present a final June later in the fiscal year. This first one shows us the operating funds. Actually, this is the second one now. So first is a numerical presentation. Now this is a line chart presentation of the budget compared to the actual and the previous year to date. Next slide shows us bar charts of the revenue categories. And then the expense categories for general fund. And then we have the auxiliary funds. Once again with the numbers, and then also graphical presentation and bar charts of where we stand on the auxiliary funds. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this June budget at this point.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Wadka? No questions.
Thank you. The second item for information is the awarded purchases of $20,000 and over, and we do have quite a number of them this afternoon, being the last time we reported on this was 2 months ago. So starting with the first one, the remediation of the CCX system is Avid Consulting out of Gilbert, Arizona, in the amount of $60,000, and that is to contract for our network and system consulting services for the entire district. Next one is CART Services, City of Coolidge, Arizona. CART is the Central Arizona Regional Transportation. That is our bus service that you see on campus that's provided to students and staff. That's $23,558, and that is the renewal of the new annual agreement for the new fiscal year. Next one, maintenance supplies for fiscal year 20, Granger out of Phoenix, Arizona for $27,500. That is to open a purchase order for maintenance supplies for the new fiscal year. VMware vSphere Licensing, CDWG, Chicago, Illinois, $28,159. That is the VMware licensing. That is to renew our annual license. Next one, janitorial supplies for the new fiscal year. Waxy Sanitary Supply out of Mesa, Arizona, $27,500. That's once again, it's to open a purchase order for janitorial supplies for a new year. Next one, temporary employees, Robert Half out of Los Angeles, California, in the amount of $21,000. That is to open a purchase order for temporary employees that are used from Robert Half. Facilities management fee, Sodexo, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, $179,100. That is our annual contract for facilities management for the entire district. Interpreting services for fiscal year 20, AZ Freelance Interpreting Services, Gilbert, Arizona, in the amount of $60,000. That is to purchase the interpreting services for fiscal year 20. Next one, 2001 Sterling Water Truck with a 2,500-gallon water system, Maverick Equipment out of Phoenix, Arizona, $41,250, and that is to purchase a water truck for the heavy equipment funds, and that is funded by the Perkins Grant. Liability insurance from the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust out of Phoenix, Arizona, $302,940. That is to purchase our liability insurance for the new fiscal year. Next one, resurfacing of the driving track, Ace Asphalt of Arizona Inc. in Phoenix, Arizona, $51,813.10. That is to repair and to resurface our driving track. Next one, computers for faculty and staff, CCB Technologies, Racine, Wisconsin, $243,398. That is to purchase replacement computers for the entire district. Maintenance Xerox C70 copier, Arizona Office of Technologies, Phoenix, Arizona, $22,000. That is to pay for our annual maintenance plan for the copiers in the district. For the print shop copiers. The next one, Rico Maintenance Agreement, Rico USA, Pasadena, California, $42,908. That is the contract for the leasing of our copy machines for the district. Rico Equipment Lease, Rico USA, $46,740. That is to purchase the annual maintenance plan for the copiers for the district. Tech Pack Learning Units, Interface Technical Training, Phoenix, Arizona, $74,970. That's to purchase the learning units for the IT staff. Tech Pack Learning Units, Interface Technical Training, Phoenix, Arizona, $33,040. I think that's a typo there. There's two of them there. Criminal Law Procedures and Policies, Edwards and Amato PC, Sedona, Arizona, $20,000. That is the legal firm that we use to provide the legal services for our police department and implementing policies and procedures and training. Billboards Advertising, Gila River Display, Chandler, Arizona, $48,419. That is to purchase the billboard advertising in the district. Assistive Technology, Vertbit Software Limited, out of Tel Aviv, Israel, $45,000. That is to purchase contract for services for real-time transcription and captioning. Delta Controls Software Upgrade, Advanced Controls Corporation, Tucson, Arizona, $33,277.30. That is to upgrade the web-based software on our controls. 25 Live Services, CollegeNet Incorporated, Portland, Oregon, $47,300. That is the annual service fees for the scheduling system for the district. 2020 Ford Transit XL passenger van, Sanderson Ford, Glendale, Arizona, $35,734.60. That is a new passenger van to replace, obviously, our old passenger van. The next one is a 2020 Ford cargo van, Sanderson Ford, Glendale, $31,050, and that is to replace the old cargo van. 2020 Ford F-150 XL 4x2 cab pickup truck, Sanderson Ford, Glendale, Arizona, $24,105.40, and that is to replace the old facilities work truck. And the last one, Security Personnel G4 Secure Solutions, Juniper, Florida, $248,398, and that is to contract for security services for the SMC campus, Maricopa, and Santan campuses. Any questions on the bids?
Questions on any item? Thank you very much for your report. We appreciate it. Very informative.
Thank you.
Next item is Guided Pathways Progress Report, News and Celebrations. Thank you.
I'm a little smaller than Chris. Good afternoon, Board President and members and President Jackie. I'm here to represent the Guided Pathways News and Celebrations Committee. Selena couldn't make it today. She has a family emergency. So I'm here to talk about where we're at with Guided Pathways. As the News and Celebrations Committee, we're sort of the good fun committee. We get to promote all the good work that the Guided Pathways committees are doing. The first thing that we did was we involved the students in designing the logo. And I have some with me today. These are the stickers that the logos that one of the graphic design students designed. And the committee, we had a committee that voted on this particular logo. I did have a PowerPoint, but I have been rushing from one thing to the other all morning, so it just didn't make it up there. So after we developed the logo and the brand, our goal was to raise awareness of Guided Pathways. And we will be doing that through social media and a scavenger hunt where we will place one of these little stickers. I just give up. I'd rather just talk and I'll pretend I'm in the classroom. So we will stick one of these stickers in a place on each one of the campuses so that we involve all the campuses district-wide, and students will be sent out to find one of these, and they will win a gift card for the bookstore. So really we're all about raising awareness. We have issued our first newsletter, and I was supposed to do that, but I will be really honest, I was way too busy at the end of last semester, so Amanda Lulan helped me out with that, and we did distribute a really cool newsletter. And what happens is everybody from all of the different committees, they just send in what they've been doing. So we have the mapping committee and where the mapping committee is at, and the newsletter just lets everybody know where we're at with Guided Pathways, because I think we all believe, everyone who's involved in Guided Pathways, that it's so important that we all communicate what's going on and how exciting it is for students, and to get the students excited about it. So that's why we involve them with the logo, that's why we've involved them in the scavenger hunt, and there'll be milestone celebrations when we've mapped our first programs and they're all ready to go. That will be in the newsletter. So we just plan to keep the whole CAC community updated on what's going on. So that's why I came today. And I'm sorry Selena's not here with me. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Please take some stickers. We're super proud of these, and I'm very proud of the student that designed them. He has since graduated, but his work remains here. So thank you.
Thank you for your report. It's exciting to see all of the progress that's being made. Thank you. Monitoring reports, Jenny Cardenas and Mary Kay Gilliland.
All right, so just like we typically do with monitoring reports, Mary Kay and I will both present today. So President Gibson, Governing Board members, Dr. Elliott, colleagues, students, and guests, we're excited to be able to present this information to you today. We're going to kind of go a little bit off script, and I'm actually going to be covering 1.1 and 1.4. So we'll do those together, and then Dr. Gilliland will come up and share 1.2 and 1.3 with you. So 1.1 has to do with our retention rate and 1.4 with our graduation rate. And I want to start by sharing the way that those are gathered. So our retention rate is a fall-to-fall semester measure of how the percentage of our students who are staying at CAC from fall to fall. Whereas the graduation rate is a 6-year cohort. So it's students that we started monitoring 6 years ago. So there is a difference in kind of how those two things are gathered. So if we go to the first slide, so outcome 1, ensuring student success through retention, persistence, completion, and transfer. And this, again, is our fall-to-fall retention rate. So we're really excited to share that many of the process changes that we've had across the district within academics and student services and just all the different areas, our improvements with IT and our physical spaces and so many things that have happened. We've actually increased our retention from last year from 69% to 73%. So that really is a great indication of some of the smaller process changes that we've made, again, just in the last year. If you would, and that, as you can see, is almost as high as the Arizona Community College retention rate of 77% and well above the 54% national average. So we're really excited about those retention numbers. If you'll skip to 1.4, these are one more. There you go. These are our graduation rate numbers. The numbers certainly are not where we want them to be by any means. Again, this is a cohort that would have started with us 6 years ago. We know nationally as well as within the state and definitely for CAC as well, our enrollment numbers have dropped. And we have had a lower graduation rate than we've had in the past. With this, we're really looking at guided pathways and a lot of the changes that we're making. I know Mary Kay is going to talk about a few of those as well, as being ways to help our students get from point A to point B. So the first slide had indicated our students are remaining from fall to fall. This next slide is where we think the big changes will come as we move towards guided pathways and really changing some of our large-scale processes at the college. So looking at recent improvements for both of those two, one of the things that we recently have done, and I believe that we've mentioned it in this in governing board meetings before, is the removal of the graduation fee. So we've removed the fee for graduation. Our scholarship task force, which was a group from throughout the district involving people from all different areas, came together, and two of the things that they created were, one, a milestone scholarship, where as students reach certain milestones, they'll receive scholarship dollars to continue, but also the finish line scholarship, which is more looking at our students who are just almost to the finish line and for whatever reason have a barrier that's been placed in front of them, a financial barrier. This scholarship is for those students to help to push them to meet their graduation goals. We've also, moving towards this year, this will be our first year where we're offering complimentary cap and gowns for our graduates, which we've seen as another barrier. Students have indicated that the cost for a cap and gown is a barrier for them and they don't come to graduation or apply for graduation. They move on into transferring onto the university or to the workforce. So this would be another way to capture those students. We've also recently redesigned our new student orientation. So we just got the numbers actually this morning. Just under 700 of our students this year went through new student orientation, which I don't have the comparison number, but it is a much higher number than we've seen in the past. And we know that students who go through that initial step of new student orientation typically graduate at higher levels and are retained at higher levels. So that was a real positive for this year. Some of the planned improvements that we have is discussing an early registration incentive. So really incentivizing the fact that we want students to come in early for registration. If they come in to do their registration early, they're also taking care of their financial aid early, ensuring that they have funding for their books or transportation, childcare, those types of things. So by having an incentive for them to register early, we're hoping that that will have more students do it. We know that typically a week or two before school starts, we do have a pretty good population of students that wake up in the morning and decide to come to college, and our lines are out the door. And so we'd like to really help students to plan a little bit earlier to go through that process so that they're prepared. And also really analyzing and reviewing the graduation rates, course completion, which Mary Kay will talk about, and really determining some of the root causes for the decline in our graduation population. So I will now turn it over to Dr. Gilliland.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And just continuing on, I will address the two middle pieces of this outcome. So if we can go, we're there, the DevEd. Okay, good. We're going to be looking at course completions for both developmental education courses and for regular college level courses. In both cases, with these measures, we see that there has been a slight drop since the previous measure. And of course, this is measuring 2017 to 2018, so there is a lag in the data that we're getting. We're hoping that those will be up next time we look at them, and we're doing many, many things to try to ensure that that's the case. I believe that they may already be moving in that direction, but that's positive thinking here on my part. We've had a slight drop, or a slight drop in the English and reading outcomes for developmental education courses. We've had a little bit bigger drop in the math completions. Math is always a little bit more challenging for students in all institutions, and so that's perhaps not so surprising. One thing I want to say is that, well, a couple of things. Just in terms of the percentages themselves may be challenged by the drop in enrollment. So when we have a small drop in enrollment, the percentage is a little bit different measure. if you only have if you have 10 students, one student out of that 10 is going to be 1/10, whereas if you only have 8 students, each student has a bigger impact on the percentage. So the percentage numbers might be reflecting as much a drop in the enrollments as simply students not completing courses, if that makes any sense. It's just simply the measurement. We do actually, I find it a little bit of a irony that we're looking at the developmental education course completions. One of the strong initiatives here at the college is that we are actually trying to move away from DevEd altogether, if possible. We're not going to be able to do that completely, but we are doing a lot of things. A lot of our initiatives are aimed at helping students get into those college level courses faster. Because there's good evidence in the national literature that students who start at the college level are much more successful. And sometimes even those students who place at a lower level are really able to tackle the college level courses with additional supports. So some of our initiatives include redesigning our developmental level courses. In particular, right now there's huge effort being put on redesigning math. So that the math courses, the many levels of DevEd will be condensed into a Foundations 1 and a Foundations 2, depending on which pathway a student is on in our new guided pathway system. They may be needing 1 semester of DevEd instead of 3 semesters of DevEd, even coming in with the same placement levels. Another initiative has to do with our multiple measures, placing students in courses based not only on a standardized test, and we all know that a one-time test might not produce the best results for some students, but looking at additional measures in that placement process. And those measures could include what they completed in high school and their high school GPA, which nationally seems to be a better indicator of student success than those standardized tests. Additional multiple measures would include things such as right side or right classing. The first day of class, students might be placed in a class, do a small assessment, and might actually demonstrate that they're ready for that next level based on a less stressful environment, not that standardized test, but something that's happening in a classroom. So we're looking at a number of initiatives, and I will say that I want to congratulate the math faculty in particular for really working hard at surveying the literature, leveraging their resources, and spending a great deal of time in working towards this redesign. So we hope that we'll be seeing some of those efforts coming forward this next time around. The English and reading faculty have also been working to create new strategies for helping students get into college level courses faster. Quite a few years ago, they pioneered a method where students who are placing into English 100 and are at a certain, reasonable level, not at the lowest level of placement, but are able to simultaneously enroll in English 100 and 101, and they are completing those 101 courses at approximately the same level of completion as students who are placing into 101 to start with. So those have been really successful measures, and that has spurred the college on to implementing the co-requisite model. And we are reaching out and trying to expand those courses that are allowing students to enroll in regular college level courses and doing reading, for example, as a co-requisite rather than a DevEd prerequisite. And that should help improve moving our students forward. So I think as much as anything, we would like to see those numbers go up in terms of DevEd completion, but we'd also like to see the numbers of students taking DevEd go down so that we're not having quite so many students starting at that level, more students starting at the college level as they enter CAC. That moves us on to 1.3, which is our college level course success rate. Again, we have a slight drop in this compared to the previous measurement in 2016-17. Again, we're measuring 27-18 here. We hope that this is going to turn around and that those completion rates will be stronger. We're not just hoping, we are leveraging lots of initiatives to try to help better support students in their efforts as they move into those college level courses. Once again, the overall enrollments may be reflected a little bit in those drop. It's a small drop in percentage. It may just simply be linked to the drop in enrollments. But some of the things that we are implementing, some of our initiatives, we're actually looking for a root cause analysis for determining those declines, and Dr. Cardenas spoke about that as well. We are actually developing some new reporting for the college. We have moved into a new ERP system, as you all know very well. Getting the correct data has been a little bit challenging as we've transitioned from one system to the next, but we are actually increasingly being able to get at that information and even sort of redesign some reports to get the information, the data that we need to make the best decisions and understand exactly maybe where we need to provide more support for students. And so utilizing these new reports, I think, will give us a more accurate analysis of some of those variables that are affecting our students in completing all levels of courses. And then finally, we're launching an initiative in academics this year to build a master schedule. We've been working very hard on right-sizing our schedule, kind of reining things in and trying to, have more robust sections. And our next initiative is to really try to build a master schedule in concert with guided pathways, so that we will have students who have an easier time building a meaningful schedule, which we hope will help them move forward and not just, to be retained in courses, because it will be easier to get the courses they need at the right time and in the right combination, and also to be able to complete without having to wait for that extra course in their program that's hanging out there that isn't offered that semester. So this is going to take a lot of mustering, a lot of data, a lot of work, but we're actually pretty excited about this. So we're aiming to have a master schedule, a stronger, more robust master schedule in place for next fall 2020. So those are our primary initiatives at this point to help improve those course completions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm expecting questions.
Mr. Miller.
Okay, I do have a few. I think this is it's outcome one, but to me it's like the number one outcome, student success. So I do have a couple questions. We'll start with the easy ones first. On 1.1, the 77% goal, that's just refresh my memory. Did we decide that was floating with the Arizona Community College level? Because I see that equals.
Right. I believe that it was selected based on the fact that was the Arizona Community College
So
average.
it'll float depending on what Arizona does.
No, I think it would be determined based on the board retreat in July.
Actually, that one's a strategic plan.
I'm sorry,
If
you're
you
right.
see the little SP.
Easy vision.
So the strategic planning committee picked that as a target and a measure based on the board selecting it as its original monitoring report. And I think at the time it was selected because the Arizona average was 77 at the time.
Okay, so is it dynamic or is it static at 77? Dynamic meaning it follows the Arizona.
No. It follows the strategic plan, which was set and voted on until 2020. So it will stay at 77.
Okay. Okay, thanks. 1.2, just a question about the analysis. If a student, I would assume that we are allowed to have them take a class multiple times until they can pass, or is that?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so does the first failure affect the overall grade, or do we take the last?
On the transcript, the student would have both grades on the transcript. Only one would figure into their GPA, so the other would be zeroed out, essentially.
Okay.
But in collecting the data, they're all reflected.
Okay, all right. And is the 80% realistic?
I don't know. The Arizona CC average right now is at 77%. That's pretty close to 80% for the reading and English. It's pretty far from the average in math. It may be something to think about going forward. It's not a bad target to aim for. I'd love to see us there.
Okay.
So that mirrors one of my questions is in 1.2 is since we asked the question, is 80% achievable? Have we set it too high? And I guess that's my question. Is there ever any chance of meeting that goal, or are there plans, or is it just something that's going to be variable through the year?
Yeah, I believe this is linked to the Arizona Vision Report. So I think that 80% is probably going to stay there as our goal. Again, it doesn't make us less successful. It makes the measures a little bit, maybe further apart right now, but I think aiming for that is still reasonable. It's realistic. We would like to get to that, and we're aiming for something that all of the community colleges are working for. So, in that sense, it's not unrealistic.
And I'll just add that this is the target that the board set, and when we review them in December, we can certainly revisit the 80%. I guess I hope my hope is that someday we don't even have this monitoring report or measure because we don't have Dev Ed anymore as an institution. So.
Well, I would agree with that and apologize in infringing on your time, Ms. Miller. But one of the basic benefits of a community college is to take individuals who may have been out of school for a long time and things have changed and procedures have changed, and here we're helping them get back up into speed and able to perform at the level that we all would like to see them do. And I would hope that we might be able to work ourselves out of that also. But I'd also, when we come back in and reset the goals next time around, I don't want to set it to the point where it's impossible to achieve either. So something to think about as we move forward. Please,
Absolutely.
Mr. Miller.
Okay, thanks. 1.4. To me, this is a little bit alarming because it's a declining result. And I realize, I believe you said it's a 6-year cohort. Okay, so it does take a while for this to make a change. And there are numerous things that I know the staff has presented to improve the graduation rate. But I think I only really heard of a couple leading indicators. One was the 700 new students in orientation. You're thinking that will directly relate to a higher graduation rate, but you don't really have any numbers to say that that's
Right. I think that the big thing that I wanted to point out in the very beginning was the fact that with our retention rate being an annual number and being able to see that we have had an increase in retaining our students from semester to semester, it's showing kind of a correlation between the change in processes that we've made and the change in courses and with co-requisite models and different things like that we've done across the district that will show that although it's really difficult to project out into the future to see if that 6-year cohort will be increasing, we can see that we are retaining more students. So if we can identify the issues within, whether it be the different programs and through guided pathways making changes there, or our advising model as we're making changes there, or some of the several different components that we see as a part of the larger guided pathways project, we believe that the retention rate increase can be a correlation and indication that our graduation rate will increase as well. So it's so difficult knowing that, I know that we've spoken about enrollment, but if you look at our enrollment from 6 years ago versus now, it's a pretty drastic change, not just at CAC, but like I've said, throughout the state and throughout the country. So many of those students were lost, and it might not have mattered the types of process changes that we've made. They went back into the workforce or made changes in their lives. So I think really the best indicator would be the fact that we are retaining more of our students from year to year. So, and we'll continue to make those changes.
So in a non-binding, informal projection, would you say that we have turned the corner, that we might see a 24 or 26%?
I think that I am much, much more hopeful looking at all of the district-wide processes that we've changed and the partnerships and collaboration that we've seen and the real change in our direction as an institution opposed to the tweaking from semester to semester and making small minor changes, the type of institutional change that we're seeing. And again, the increase in the number of students that we're able to keep, I think is a great indication that we're certainly moving in the right direction.
Dan, I might add too is that this is a 6-year cohort that's lagging, and I think in 2019-2020 we're going to see a huge difference because, as you recall, we've implemented a lot of stackable credentials, and just since I've been here in 3 years, our degrees and certificates awarded has gone up by 36% because of the stackable credentials, and this has not caught up yet to what's happened in the last 3 years, but we are awarding more degrees and certificates because of the ability for students to complete those credentials in shorter amounts of time.
And I think we'll see a similar statistic or similar statistics next board meeting when we look at the number of degrees and certificates that have been attained versus the number of students who have transferred over the years to universities. It's a similar change where the number of degrees and certificates has definitely been increasing even with lower enrollment. But again, that's from year to year. It's not looking at a 6-year cohort. So those are to me clear indications that the changes that we're making are positively affecting the students that we have. It's just difficult to see these types of numbers, which there's no way of getting around the fact that that's very low.
Okay. And one last question, I promise, Mr. Chair. you had touched on it, and I just want to go a little more detail. The data accuracy having to do with we went to a new MRP system, which you have access to a lot more data, more real time. Is it possible that some of the previous numbers were not? I'm sorry, no, were not as accurate, or we're leaving out some factors that now you have a. I'm just thinking about putting on prescription glasses. Now you're looking at the data with MRP. Are we feeling better about the data we're getting out of the system than we may have with other systems we've used to get the past numbers?
I hate to speculate too much about the accuracy of data because we work with the data that we have and we try to make improvements based on that. So I'm going to kind of stick with that for now, but there is some thought that perhaps we were not capturing all of the correct data with our previous way of doing things. Our new system was a little bit challenging to start with. It comes with a lot of pre-populated reports, and what we're finding now is that we're able to navigate our way around those reports a little bit better, and we have some expertise internally who are actually, it's a collaborative effort between several different departments here, the IT, but also institutional effectiveness, who are working together to create some approaches to looking at those canned reports, cross-reference them, write some additional code, get some additional things for us that are really helpful for CAC. So I think we're going to be able to get new reports that might just help us drill down a little bit deeper and a little bit better. I hate to say that what we have going back isn't correct, but I think we will have good, very good, solid reporting going forward. So if I can just add one more little piece too, and sort of piggybacking on the last question with Dr. Cardenas, when we look at all of these reports, the outcomes, both those she reported on and those I report on, all of it is sort of a holistic piece. So when we're looking at the graduation rates, we really do have much more than one initiative going forward with that. We've reported on some of the highlights, but even the work going forward to try to improve course completions is going to feed into those graduation rates as well. So if you look at all of our efforts, I mean, there's a lot of efforts towards both improved retention and completion, and then once they complete, actually getting them to file for graduation, which is one more step. So, but we have a lot of initiatives actually leveraging improvement in those areas. So, I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
All right, thank you, and thank you for all the energy going into graduation rates.
Any other comments or questions? The big elephant in the room is this. We're looking good in many of these areas. Is there any impact, improvement, or degradation in the ability of the student to successfully find a job, apply their learning, and be successful in life after graduation? Care to comment about that?
I think that those are measures we're trying to get at in different ways, and I believe we may have some different reporting about that as well coming up. Tracking what they do afterwards is relatively simple. It's relatively simple if they're transfer students. That we can track. It's almost like we have little microchips out there for our transfer students because we have a wonderful, robust state system, AZ Assist, and we also are able to draw on the National Clearinghouse data. So we can get that. It's much more difficult to track those students who are going into the workforce. We are getting a lot of great feedback from students who are in some of our newer programs that are just amazing partnerships with industry. And so we have a connection with those partners and we know where those students are going. We are able to fairly well track those students who are going into employment in the health careers and other accredited areas. In other cases, it's a little bit harder to track. So that's a place where we're trying to get that information, but we don't always get all of the information, and we're pretty aware of that. We are not unique. This is an issue that all community colleges, all colleges face, and that is, once the graduates have succeeded and gone on and gotten a job, they are maybe less likely to report back to us. They're often running with their lives. So I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with all of that. And the reporting is just a little more challenging, and we are absolutely mindful of that. So, and maybe Dr. Cardenas has something to add. I don't know.
I think a couple of the things, and we have monitoring reports where we discuss the fact that we have really decided to kind of open up how we're reaching out to students once they graduate. So our class that just recently graduated will be receiving, to start with, they get information in their graduation letter, survey information. They then get emails. If we're not able to reach them there, we're making phone calls. So we have a much more concerted effort and a group that's kind of working together to see how we can reach out to those students to see, are you employed? Are you employed in the area that you came to CAC to get into? And how are you doing? Those types of things. So we are seeing much more in the area of, receiving feedback from the students. It was something that we reached out to our sister colleges throughout the state. And basically the response that we got back was, figure out something that works and let us all know. Everyone is struggling with trying to see how our students are doing. So I think we have a very good indication that our students are doing well based on the information that we've received. And I believe, and Dr. Elliott, you might be able to clarify, there's also a monitoring report that indicates employers coming back and telling us how they feel our students do once they receive them. And that's been, a high measurement as well. So they've indicated that they're happy with the students that they receive who have completed with CAC. So.
There are 2 monitoring reports. It's hard to remember. There's 42 of them, so to expect the board to remember all 42, that's a lot. That's my job to remember all 42. We do have 2 monitoring report measures. One is student employment. What Dr. Cardenas mentioned. Are they employed, and are they employed in their field of study? I was going to pull it up and give you the latest data. The second is an employer survey, how satisfied they are with their CAC graduates at a hire.
I find it heartening, extremely heartening. And I think it's an evidence that is hard to keep track of, and it's hard to put our fingers on. But we don't see any graduates coming back after failing to find a job or to use their credentials moving forward and coming into Dr. Elliott's office and saying my diploma is absolutely useless. We don't hear that. And I think that's a credit to all of the people who make Central Arizona College work. And yes, we've got some issues I think we need to work on, but overall, I think we're doing a pretty good job. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate the reports. All right, I believe that concludes the agenda as presented. Our next board meeting is on September 17th at the Maricopa campus, and I'm assuming that's at 2 p.m. as always. And with that, we will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for being here.